Shalom, my name is Gidon Ariel, and you'll hear a little bit more about me later, but today I'm making a presentation as a resident of Ma'aleh Hever, and I'm happy to introduce you to where I live. First of all, let's look northward. Over there, where you came from today, is Jerusalem, about 20 or so miles north. Then comes Gush Etzion, a little bit further south from there. Then we pass through Hebron on our way here. Up above, you can't see it from your camera, but I'm pointing at it, is an Arab village called Bani Naim. And here we are in my community of Ma'aleh Hever. Now let's look eastward. What you see over here is the Judean desert. And beyond the Judean desert, we have a half-decent view today. You can pretty much see in the distance the mountains of Moab and Ammon. I'm not sure exactly how to say that in English, but Moab and Ammon maybe. And that, of course, today is the state of Jordan, Israel's neighbor to the east. Just west, just on our side of the border with Jordan, is the Dead Sea. You can't see it right now because it's right in between, in the Syrian-African rift between Jordan and Israel. And what you see here, right in front of us, all of this is part of the Judean desert. The Judean desert stretches from further up, just near Jerusalem, till further down, almost towards Beersheba. And I'll just continue with our half circle over here. Again, you might want to come a little bit closer so that you can almost see. After the winter, we have to trim the trees a little bit. The closest Jewish community here is called Carmel. Beyond that is Ma'on. Then comes Susia, Yatir, and then Meitar, Beersheba, Eilat, South Pole. And those of you who are familiar with the Bible might have heard of Ma'on and Carmel. That is where Naval HaCarmeli, Nabal the Carmelite, lived and worked in a place called Ma'on. And today there are people who live in Carmel and work in Ma'on, just like 3,000 years ago. So if I'm talking about 3,000 years ago, let's think a little bit further back till about 4,000 years ago. Even 4,400 years ago, there was a certain gentleman by the name of Abraham. Abraham lived in this area. As it says in the Bible, he lived in Hebron. Hebron, as I mentioned, and as we traveled, is about 10-minute drive north from here, a little bit northwest from here. He came to Israel with his wife Sarah and his nephew Lot. And Lot and Abraham, as described in Genesis 17, 19, I am not good at these numbers, you'll look it up, but certainly you'll easily be able to find it. The story of how Lot and Abraham were both shepherds, owned a lot of sheep, and employed many shepherds. And the shepherds of Lot and Abraham were fighting because you know how it is when you're shepherds. I want that water. I want that for my sheep to eat. And everybody's got to fight. So Abraham told Lot, we're brothers. Why should we fight? You go to the east, I'll go to the west, north, south, wherever you go, I'll go the other way. There should not be a fight between us. So Lot looked eastward and saw the beautiful, lush Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, of course, this was before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. It was lush then. So he said, that's a great place for me to be. And that is right over there. Again, we can't see the Syrian-African rift, the Dead Sea, but trust me, it's there. And that is where Lot decided to go. And after Lot went out, as the Bible describes, Abraham went back to where he was living, Hebron, but not before God appeared to Abraham and said, Abraham, look to the north, the south, the east, the west. This is the land that I'm promising to you and to your progeny forever and ever. Hebron to the north, Sodom to the south, Ma'aleh Hever right in the middle. That happened right here in my backyard. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Abraham was promised the land of Israel. Fast forward a few hundred years, and we have a gentleman by the name of David. David, before he was a king, he was, guess what? A shepherd in the desert of Judea. David was from the tribe of Judah, Judea. And so he would tend his flock here in my backyard and many, many other places. That's the way shepherds work. They travel around. People think of a desert as a place with a lot of sand, but the Hebrew word for desert is midbar, and that really means a place for sheep to graze. So sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. You've come here to visit me just a little bit towards the end of the winter, and so you can see everything is green here further on. Come here just after the summer, then you'll see everything is a nice yellow-brown. But getting back to David, this is the place where he was very, very familiar. And if you can see, there are caves over here, a lot of caves in the Judean desert. And that is why there's one over here, for example, one right over there. David, when he was trying to run away from Saul, from the Plishtim, the Philistines, when he was running away from his son Absalom, he always made sure to go to a place where he would have, as it were, the upper hand, where he would know the area and he would be able to hide well if he needed to hide. And that is why he came back to the Judean desert. Imagine hanging out in such a cave and you know that your life is in danger. That, I believe, is where David wrote many of the Psalms. How inspirational this view is, both for good and for less good. Let's fast forward a few more 100 years. David's son, Solomon, built a temple in Jerusalem. After David, who was the king in Hebron for 6 years, then for another 33 years in Jerusalem. Then his son, Solomon, was the king. He built the first temple. About 400 years later, the first temple was destroyed. About 70 years of a break, another 400, then the second temple was built, then it was destroyed about 400 years later. We're up to about the year of 150, about 50 or 70 years after the second temple was destroyed. There was a certain man by the name of Simon Bar Kokhba. Bar Kokhba means the son of a star, and he decided that he was going to lead the Jewish resistance, the Jewish revolt against the Romans, because this is the Jewish land, this is the land that the Jews must have their independence. So he cobbled together an army, and he made sure that his headquarters would be right here in the Hever Valley. The name of my community is Ma'alei Hever. It means we're overlooking the Hever Valley. Hever, on the one hand, it means like friend. On the other hand, it is connected to the word Hebron, and Hever. That is why this is the Valley of Hebron. It goes through over there until it empties out very strongly into the Dead Sea. That general, Shimon Bar Kokhba, he had his army scattered all over Judea, and for example, he would write them letters. In those days, there was no WhatsApp, couldn't send an email. So he would write them letters and tell them what their orders were. How do we know that? Because in his headquarters here in the Valley of Hever, we found the official copies of those letters. You know how it is, in the old days, at least every time you sent a letter, you kept a copy for the king's or the general's archive. One of those letters, the most famous letter that was found in that archive, and many, many things were found there, was a letter to the soldiers in a place called El Arub. Now, El Arub, the word Arub, sounds like Arab, right? That's an Arab village today, not far from here, about 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers. However, it's not called El Arub because Arabs live there. It's called El Arub, as this letter explains to us, that Bar Kokhba told his soldiers there, listen, the Feast of Tabernacles is getting close. I want to make sure that the 4 species that all Jews must carry on the week of Sukkot, of Tabernacles, will be available for all of our soldiers, and therefore you, in the city of El Arub, which is like Arava, which is like a willow, which is not like a willow, but that is the translation of the word willow. That is one of the 4 species. You know, it's a lulav, a palm frond, an etrog, a citrus fruit, and the other two, the willow, ha'arava, lulav, etrog, hadas, and arava. Okay, again, I know it better than Hebrew. In any case, we see that Bar Kokhba not only was the general of his army, he was the chief chaplain of his army, making sure that the religious needs of his Jewish army would be taken care of. In any case, Bar Kokhba did not succeed in his revolt. The Bar Kokhba, the great Jewish revolt, failed, and the Jews went out into exile. That was about 150 CE, and the land of Israel was mostly empty from Jews for almost 2,000 years. But then the Zionist movement started. Jews were hearing the call of God to come back to the land of Israel, start reestablishing a state of Jews in the land of Israel, just like it was promised to Abraham so many thousands of years ago. And during that time, a lot of the Jews were very excited to come back to this land. They started dealing in archaeology. One of the most famous archaeologists in Israel, he was the main archaeologist in Masada. I'm sure you've heard of Masada. That archaeologist was the chief archaeologist in Masada. Again, you can't see it from over here, but it's a few kilometers south of Sodom. That same archaeologist was the same one that dug here in Nachal Chever and among other things, discovered those letters of Bar Kokhba. But who was that man? He was not just the number one archaeologist in Israel, he was the number one soldier in Israel. His name was Yigael Yadin. He was the first chief of staff of the Israeli army in 1948. So look what you have over here. A special delivery letter from the last Jewish chief of staff, almost 2,000 years ago, to the first Jewish chief of staff in our day. It's as if God, commander of history, simply jumped over all that history and said, it's just a hiccup, the Jews are back in their land. So that's what we see here today. The Jews are back in their land in 1948. The Jews were in their land in the time of Bar Kokhba, of David, of Abraham, and I, as a son of the Jewish people, am amazed, and I am so excited to once again be part of this amazing story of the Jewish people in their land, the land of Israel.